So hello and welcome to the Now Why podcast. This is a wonderful space for our coaches, our print coaches, to learn something new from our wonderful coaches that are already out there and demonstrating and leading with print. This is also a great place for people that don't know anything about print to learn about its application, the wonderful things that it can do, and think about how we use our unconscious motivators and our drivers to move us forward. Today in the hot seat, I've got Wayne O'Kell. Wayne has got an MBE, he's an accomplished leader, a mentor and a coach with a career spanning the military, business and international sport. As a Director of Talent at Fairways, Wayne provides vision, strategy and the practical tools for leaders to thrive, empowering them to lead with courage, explore vulnerability and learn from failure, which I think is a really interesting lens to look through. Wayne's 30-year Royal Naval career saw him rise to Warrant Officer First Class and play a pivotal role in developing effective personnel and designing specialist training for elite military and police units worldwide. In parallel, he has led therapeutic and trauma-informed services supporting vulnerable young people through outdoor activities, coaching and multidisciplinary care. As the founder of the Royal Navy Rugby League, he guided the UK Armed Forces to World Cup victory, coached internationally and now mentors professional athletes while serving as an in-touch trustee for service leavers. Wayne is a thought leader, an unshakable optimist and an example of transformational leadership in action.
Thanks, Kay. Honestly, it's brilliant to not just speak to you, but be able to see you as well. So it's great, and we'll literally have to, put a time to this. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
Absolutely, but we can edit it, so that's all good stuff. Wonderful. So the question I ask all of my guests is: tell me about the first time you encountered print and what it did for you.
A good friend of mine, Martin Johnson at T2, who's an avid user of print. Martin and I go back years, and he kind of said to me, "Look, I've got a tool that'll blow your mind. You've just let me give you a look and feel of it, and just see where it goes." So obviously I agreed to that. I trust Martin implicitly, and I got the report back, and then I started to read the report. And what I loved about the report was, it's the reason I think I absolutely bought into print from the start and took it up and rolled it out across the organisation, was just the fact that the language is very clean, it's very clear, and it's not complicated. It's simple to understand, but the depth that you can get into, from like an interpersonal perspective with people, it's just phenomenal, and also the depth of teamwork and team working that you can get into. Where you can take a team from a new forming team, through the storming phase into those normative behaviours that you're chasing, to eventually become a high performing team. So I loved it from the start, and then invited Martin down. And what we did then was we printed sort of 25 of our exec team. Martin did a brilliant kind of presentation around print and social styles, and we were off and running. And literally, it was at that point that I ditched what we were using already, which I wasn't too happy with anyway. We were using a tool called Insights, and the accuracy was it wasn't great. And print. I mean, I goodness knows how many people I've printed now. I must be over 1,000, But out of all those people, I've probably had 2 or 3 that have ever, turned around and said this is not me with their reports. 2 of those have literally flipped during the session, and then come back to then go, actually this is me.
Yeah.
And then I had one which took 24 hours, and I asked him to show his wife and his family, and he was waiting for me at 7 o'clock the following morning to go, okay, yeah, it's all me. So print is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal tool, and actually, we've embedded that deep into our culture at Fairways.
And I know that you have used it extensively all the way through your people journey, haven't you? Right from
Yeah.
recruitment, onboarding, induction. Can you share anything with regards to how you've done that and what you've done with it, Wayne? Because I know that A, you've used it for many, many years, but B, you've actually spread it far and wide, haven't you, across your teams?
We would use print. It depends on, I would say, the individual directors, within the company, whether they want to use it, at a certain level. So from manager or an executive level upwards, we'd definitely print all candidates, and we'd look at, whether we thought they were a good fit for the role based around the print and whatnot. So it's quite. And what I love as well is all the directors at Fairways are au fait with print, the language, the numbers, the groupings of numbers, because that's important as well. And then from a talent perspective, print forms one of the key elements of what we do. So let me give you an example. I'm running 2 leadership programs in Wales currently. So that's 2 cohorts of leaders, and we use a skills report, and we use an attributes report, and all of that is the golden thread that's wrapped through that is print. And what you'll do is, like, our whole leadership pipeline is 6 workshops, leading self, leading others, leading teams, etc. And even the leading teams, there's a forensic interrogation of how to lead a team. So within that, the first thing we always start with is understanding yourself, and your print, for instance, and what triggers you've got. But I think one of the big things that we've really brought to life this last few years is, you may have triggers, you may find yourself in shadow. What's your recovery technique? What recovery techniques have you got when you have been triggered or in shadow? But also, if you're going to an event or you're working with somebody, let's say, that may trigger you, what do you do in advance of that? So it's making people more conscious and mindful of the impact that they have and that others have on them. And we use it from a team perspective massively. So we're always looking at, team dynamics. What are the dominant behaviours in teams? What numbers have we got in terms of everyone's print profiles? I guess what numbers are missing as well. That's an important one. Yeah. What we do about that. I'll give you a good example. I've got one on our operations board of directors. I've got one person that I regularly. She will know if she listens to this. She will know exactly who it is. I watch her like a hawk because she's my emotional barometer in there. So she's a 6 in print to be safe and secure, and to be perfect, correct, and right. So she's a 6-1, and what she's absolutely great at is finding any blind spots or any great holes in your fantastic master plan. So I've got used to. All the time, just saying, what you're thinking, and I'll often say that in advance of taking anything to be ratified, or if I've got a proposal, I'll kind of send it her way for her to get have a look at, because she'll spot risk, she'll spot anything that requires a little bit of mitigation around it, for instance, and it's really powerful how you can use other people's numbers to make your journey more effective at work. We use print. I use it. I've gone off piste a little bit, so I use it from a HR perspective. Any individuals that kind of would have relationship issues at work, complain about someone, et cetera, et cetera. I'll always encourage people to go down that line of mediation. And of course, one of the first questions I ask is, can I share your print report with this individual, and can they share their print report with you? Mm-hmm. And that often a lot of dialogue happens around that, and even in that case, I always say, like, dialogue's primacy. Let's get talking. Let's find out about each other. Let's work out, because you may be inadvertently and unconsciously triggering somebody without even knowing, So and that often comes to light in mediation sessions, And rather than, it going on being this long protracted issue and affecting other members of the team, it gets solved instantly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you've gone off piste at all. I think that's a really great example, isn't it, of its application, and actually that real depth of understanding not only yourself but other people. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Like you've said, kind of nipping something in the bud, or actually dealing with something before it gets out of hand or grows even bigger. It's a really good example of how you've built psychological safety around it, helping people to be vulnerable and supporting that real open conversation and dialogue about the things that motivate and drive them, and the things that actually might trigger them into shadow behavior. So I think when you create that type of culture and that environment for people to be able to do that, that's got to impact that high performance and that humanistic way of being and operating as a one community and a collection of teams that are all heading in the same direction for the same outcome, but do something different.
I think we've got an example of this actually, so it's about creating a feeling of safeness, which is almost like it's like safety but on steroids, if you get my drift. One of my leadership programs, I've got an outstanding young girl on one of the programs, and she's 9-1 in print. So to have peace and harmony, and to be perfect, correct, and right. So what you'd see in there is I'll create activities and scenarios that will require people to have a view and share their view. So it's important that that's done in a safe way, in a safe manner. So all this is kind of verbally contracted at the start of the programs, and our programs last a few months as well. So they go on a bit of a journey together. So there's a real bonding element to this as well. It's huge. But even that, when you then talk about this team of teams, people are bonded across teams, and that can last for an extended period of time. So we've even had people from certain teams peer review each other, join together and join forces, where that wouldn't have happened, without the contribution that we get from print. And so this individual I'd raise something which I knew would spark, a thought or spark a comment from her, but she would go to speak because she wanted it to be perfect, correct, and right. At the same time, I can see it, and what you detect is you'd always detect and it'd be an intake of breath, and then the next bit then would be, and then an outtake of breath. You could see her, I'm about to say something because that's not right, and I'm going to give a view, and then her 9, to have peace and harmony, would go, do we really need to say something? Should I just settle back into this comfy chair? So I'd then go, what are you thinking? And teasing that out to the point where I asked that question. I've probably asked that the whole time I've been at Fairways. I must be into hundreds of thousands of times that I asked that question. But the point of it is, you've then got somebody that will openly collaborate because they feel safe. You're asking for their view, and 9-1s as well, a 9 in print. Why would we not want their view? They've got they've got a great view on the organisation, the people around them, and just add great value, in best self. So yeah, it's really important to do that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I know that you're accredited in a number of different tools, aren't you, in psychometrics anyway. So it's quite interesting to hear your take on actually what that gives you, and also what it gives the people that that you have printed. Can you share with us any great feedback that you've had from those that have been through a discovery session or high performing teams or your leadership program that's really kind of pinpointed print?
Yeah, there's regular feedback actually that comes back is around a lot of people wanting to print their partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, husband, wives, because I think that is, they all to a person leave the discovery sessions going away from there going, I am really curious about what my other half is, and I'll always say to them, see if you can work it out. tune into the language. What language are they using? Where does it sit? And we like some of the resources with print. You can work it out. It gives you all that. We have new team members join teams, and we have teams contact us all the time. Within Fairways to then go like, can you tell us when they've been printed? And of course, we always say, what numbers do you think they are? So it's almost like a game that everyone's playing around guessing the new person's numbers. But people adjust themselves really quickly to work with each other. That's a great thing, from a team perspective, where you can then see there's this almost like I think people are interested in role alignment of new people that are joining, based around their print, so that's really crucial. One of the things that we're seeing a lot as well is it's like the level of self-awareness that some people have got, having done print and having used it within their teams when they go out into our services. And we get a lot of good feedback around how that's developing over time, so that's great. And then there's, I think, another good one as well is we've had one or two people that use their print or use their shadow as an excuse. Sorry about that, it's just me, I'm in shadow. So it's to be able to stop that straight away and just say, hey, listen, that's not acceptable. You can't use your shadow as an excuse. That's not something you can just blindly throw around. We don't want you to be in shadow. We want you to be in best self as much as possible. So, so that transition from, how they recover when they're deep in, and that's even that. This I think this is a key point, actually, Kay. A lot of people will previously, if somebody's in shadow, people will say, what's wrong with you? And it's really difficult for a lot of people to answer, like, are you okay? And how do you answer when you're highly emotional at times? Sometimes you don't. And people will say, yeah, I'm fine. I think with print, it gives you the language to be able to say, I'm just triggered.
Yeah.
Or people go, are you triggered? And of course, the next question is what you're triggered about. And if you've got that feeling of safeness with the people that you work closely with, and you've got like a strong, healthy relationship, work relationship with them, then you, straight away they'll open up and they'll tell you. And we encourage this kind of stuff. And our environment is high in emotion anyway, so it can be highly stressful because we're dealing with a lot of people, that are very vulnerable, that have been through a lot of trauma, so the environment kind of, it's got a backdrop of this all the way around it, so print is just such a strong contributor to help you keep yourself in a good place.
Yeah, because actually, that journey itself takes time, but once you're there, you want to keep it going, don't you? You want to protect that culture, that way of working, that way of building a community and communicating with one another, because it's a very precious thing, isn't it? And can very easily soon, be impacted in a negative way. So that sounds like, that's having some real, inroads for you as an organisation and as those teams that is continuing.
And, with that as well, we are desperate for people to make mistakes, to fail along the way as well. On all of my leadership and development programs, we encourage making mistakes because it's important, because you've got to make mistakes and understand what suboptimal performance feels like before you can, reflect upon that, change it up, and then understand what optimal performance feels like, and then high performance feels like at the tail end of that. So the whole making mistakes kind of philosophy is huge at Fairways. We want to do that. We don't want to be making the same mistakes, but we want to be making mistakes and learning from them massively, and learning from them together, as a group. That's hugely important to us.
And how do you support those people that that do make mistakes, that are in that place of learning, and so sometimes it doesn't always go the way that you intended? What do you do to help that move from failure to success?
Yeah, so we build in, if I use all of our kind of leadership, career development pathways. Built into all of those are experiential activities. And I like the outdoors as well, so I like to go outdoors on some of that stuff, because it's great being in nature as well, because it kind of links to like your well-being and wellness and everything else. But within that, one of the things that we do is we will create some activities where it will be so difficult to just course through that and just go, yeah, that's done, that was easy, next. You literally hit a roadblock, so you're going to make mistakes in there. We almost like build them. I should remove the word almost. We build them so that people will make mistakes.
Right. Okay.
And because what we're after adaptability. That's our number one skill. Yeah. One of our number one attributes that we chase. And then sat quite closely behind that is resilience. So the thing that links them two together is, for me, is like reflection. So we're very prescriptive about how we reflect. We'll have like hot debriefs, hot reviews, what we're learning. We'll reflect in groups. Reflective practice, within Fairways is huge. As part of the leadership programs, I'll use Kolb in terms of experiential learning, do, review, apply. I'll use Gibbs. I really like Gibbs in terms of group learning. So that's like a 6-stage reflection model that we'll use. And we unpick stuff to death, we really do. And of course, if it's like a high performance level that we're chasing, I'm relentless with this. I will not allow people to finish their reflection without going, okay, so what's next? And we want to know who, what, and when. So our action from that have got to be really smart. And I always encourage the group to hold each other to account with it. So you can then see that we can fail at something, we can make a major mistake doing some kind of experiential, activity. But the learning that, and when we layer that, so the learning builds upon each activity that we go. So, it's brilliant when you see a group that's made a mistake that sometimes will lull them into a false sense of security to see if they make the same mistake and whether they've learned from that one through reflection. And all the time, I guess the metaphor I will always use is about getting themselves back to baseline. You may achieve, you may fail in this. You may literally, the team may plummet as a consequence of this. The whole activity may go south and sideways, and it's an abject failure. But don't sit with that for too long. Sit with it, indeed. Understand it, notice it, name it, and then get yourself back to baseline within a few moments, and then we're going again.
That's a great way of that process, isn't it? So actually, you've got something quite tangible to consider and think about. So I'm going to ask you this question, Wayne, because lots of people, especially running discovery sessions and leadership sessions, Betty Bottom Dollar, I always get asked this question. So I'm going to ask you this question. The question always is, what's the best makeup of a leadership team from a print profile perspective?
It's really simple for me. That there is none. I would say as many numbers as you can, depending on the team. Try and make the numbers as broad as you can, so you've got that real cognitive diversity, that diversity in thought and just diverse characters, so as many numbers as you can. But the secret to print for me is keeping them in best self as much as possible.
Big tick.
Yeah. Oh.
It's funny, isn't it? It's just like people, it's this got to be so many of whatever, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Like you've just said.
I used to get that a lot, and then I just like completely decompress that with what I've just said in terms of like, it's, if you're in charge of any team, it's your responsibility to load people up that are going to challenge you, that are not going to be like you necessarily, but can offer, a level of cognition and a level of diversity, that's just going to, spark synapses, set your team on fire and send you, to the next level.
Love that. Absolutely love that. It's just, all of those things really do make a difference, don't they? Whether you're a leadership team or not, we talk about the fact that, if you get yourself out of bed in the morning, you are a leader because you've got to lead yourself first. before you can do anything else. And I think having that mindset is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have a favourite part of the print profile? Because I know, from a report point of view, you actually get quite a lot of different angles, don't you, from it? Do you have a favourite bit that's something that you love and use a lot of?
Yeah, I build up to the reveal, so I don't allow anybody to have the reports in advance of discovery. And I'll probably build up to, we'll be like 40 minutes in before, and the reports are sat there and you can see them all desperate to get their hands on the reports. But I kind of do this grand reveal, and that has genuine impact, and I absolutely love when someone would circle the whole, when you say, just circle some elements of your report that you would agree with, that are you, and maybe underline some stuff that maybe are not you, or not so much, or you maybe disagree with. And I love the fact when somebody's read it that's been highly skeptical, and then they'll circle the whole page and go, all of that is me. Oh my goodness. How do you know this stuff? So there's that. And I guess the second bit, Kay, is, when we get them to get into similar numbers and have a chat, and then suddenly it's almost like they've found some kind of formula for alchemy or something, when they're going, oh, flipping out, we're so much alike, that somebody else can be so much alike to them that they've never met before, and they've just discovered, within the space of 60 minutes of a print workshop. And it's the conversation and the richness of conversation that they get into. And when I ask them to, I guess you do the same, you ask them to brief back around, tell us about what it's like to be these numbers, and what comes out of that is like, it's mind blowing.
Oh, it's incredible. And I don't know about you, but the thing that I love about print is, like you, I've been, delivering this for years, and every time I do it, I learn something new, because the audience is different, the delegates are different, they all bring their own uniqueness to the party. And so, it's, for me as a facilitator and as a coach, I continue to have aha moments, because it's like, that's just an incredible insight into that unconscious motivator that is not mine. We are all unique and different.
I love that as well, Kay. And I think that it's really important for what you just said. I'm just reflecting on that, and I'm thinking, like, it doesn't matter how long you've been delivering print, as a coach, be open and receptive to what's going to come, because when you are that open to it, you'll find a bit of magic in there that suddenly you're going, this is brilliant. This is another bit of almost like it resets you why and validates why you should be using print, because new stuff comes up all the time. On print discovery sessions. It's phenomenal.
So, as part of this, Wayne, as you know, this is about kind of sharing best practice and thinking about how other people can be inspired and learn from you. So my next question is, what bit of best practice would you share with others? What's your golden nugget that you think, this is something that I've learned and I want, other people to know about this, that they can maybe do themselves?
Your ability to read someone's report, help them, if they're not in best self, to help them, be more best self. And you can help somebody when they're triggered or in shadow, notice and name what it is that they're going through, and in naming it, we've got a term we use at Fairways where we'll say, because sometimes it'd be difficult for people to actually name, what they're going through. And so we've got this phrase that we say, name it to tame it. And of course, when you do, it just backs off stress, massively for you, and anxiety and a variety of other things that you may be feeling in the moment, even anger, and it then helps you to then navigate, that next phase and get yourself back to a good place.
Love it. So I think that's a great takeaway for me, absolutely, to, you know, consider that. And I think, you know, like I said to you before, I'm constantly learning with it. I think all of our coaches,
Yeah.
you know, having that open mind and considering what else can you do with it and what else can you learn from it is really important. So I know that me and you could talk the hind leg off a donkey
Yeah.
about print probably for the next 3 weeks, but sadly we've only got a short amount of time. I know that you've got to get back to work and spread that print love.
Yeah.
So my next question to you is, I obviously know what your print profile is, but for our listeners and our viewers, if you had to describe your print profile in an imaginative, metaphorical way, what would you say about yourself and your print profile, Wayne?
So my print profile, I'm a 3/8. So that's to succeed and achieve and to be strong and self-reliant. It's really difficult because I'm highly, highly, highly competitive, and that's something that's been can be a bit of an undoing, you know, in certain environments. So finding ways with my print to release that competitive nature that I've got somewhere else at times has been the best thing ever. The story I tell myself is, and it's really difficult because I'll say everything doesn't have to be a competition, Wayne. But then I've got another voice behind that one that says, yes, it does. So I'm in a constant battle with myself. That's like, you know, if you think about like the Steve Peters chimp paradox, that's my human and my chimp, you know, in a constant battle. But yeah, so my 3/8 is like, you know, I am an unshakable optimist. You know, I've been described as that before, and I will see from my print, I will always see some kind of positivity in the worst scenario that you can imagine. I'll always find, you know, a shard of light or sunshine coming in from somewhere, and I won't be down for too long. You know, if something can be, you know, quite seismic that hits, and I'll bounce back from that really quickly. And I'm always keen on bringing others with me as well. You know, and I also like the most tedious of task A ever, and then just turning them into like, this is going to be brilliant, this is going to be the best thing that we ever do, you know, etc., etc. And
you've made that a competition as well, have you?
Yeah. Just completely switching somebody up that's gone, I can't believe we've got to do this. It's going to be so. Like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. When I was in the military, we had to move house a lot, you know, and my wife would be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we are having to move house again. And I'd go, I love moving house, mate. You know, I mean, who loves moving house? Nobody, right? You know, but then she would again go, what do you mean? And I'd say, it's just a big workout. You know, we get to move everything into a big van and then, you know, take it around. And then, of course, I'd then rope some of my, you know, close mates into doing this with me. And I'd say, we're going to have like the best workout ever. It's going to take us 2 days. But I'd convince them that this was like this massive endurance workout. And they would always replay the fact that, oh, this is great, you know, this is great that, you know, what we're doing, like, you know, and I mean,
moving settees, bridges.
Yeah. Moving house is like the worst thing ever, you know, but yeah, to be able to switch that up, I think is, that's a good example of my print in action.
Did they fall for it more than once though, or did they come back for more?
One of them 7 times, you know, so to the end where, yeah, he just, if I ever even say I'm thinking about moving again, you know, he'll disappear for months on end, you know.
That's great. That's a great story, and I love the unshakable optimist. I think that should be your little tagline, maybe.
Yeah, thank you.
So you know that we have a little playlist, and I ask all of our guests to add to our playlist. So for you, Wayne, what would be your go-to track, your tune, your song, something that, you know, when you're in that place of being that unshakable optimist, or you want to get going, or you're firing on all cylinders, what would be that go-to tune that you would listen to?
This was like so difficult for me. It was like almost like saying to me, who's your favourite out of your 3 daughters? Like, you know, which obviously I've not got a favourite out of my three daughters, but in the end, I went all the way back to my roots, and I'm a Mancunian, you know. So Stone Roses, I Am the Resurrection,
Nice.
and that one particularly because if you, I managed to see Oasis on tour a couple of times last year, and if you ever watch Oasis or you ever watch Liam, there's a set amount of tracks they play in the arena before they come on. And you always know when it's getting to that time when I Am the Resurrection comes on. And you know, true, you know, kind of Oasis fans or Liam fans that know every single word to that song, you know, inside out. And yeah, and where did Oasis come from? Ian Brown, you know, and the Stone Roses, you know, so yeah.
You finally managed to just choose. I know that you've got a wealth of them, and
Yeah.
that's a great song.
Hardest decision ever. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'll let you add any more onto that list if you want to, but that is a great song to add to our list.
Thank you.
So we're coming to the end of our little catch up, Wayne. It's been lovely to talk to you. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, I know that, you know, you are very much in that space of coaching, mentoring, supporting, sharing all the wonderful stuff that you do. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Email would be the best way, wayne.o'kell@fairways.co. And yeah, drop us a line and get in touch. And it'd be great to hear from either people who are aspiring print coaches or other print coaches, and just even to share some practice. You know, that'd be amazing to do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being with us today. It's been so insightful. I love talking to you because we could do this for hours, and you know, you do some incredible stuff with print. So thank you so much for being one of our wonderful flag flyers.
Thank you very much indeed. I've enjoyed it.
See you soon.
Cheers, Kate.
Bye-bye.
See you in a bit.